He's closed today.
Just to let you know, even though I don't legally have to, you are being recorded right now. Come join the podcast for like 10 minutes. We need a practice person.
Fine.
Okay, sounds good. Do a quick little introduction. Who are you?
I'm Jason Pender. I'm the fire marshal for the city of Border.
So if I'm just, don't know what that means, what are your main duties as a fire marshal?
Well,
Like, what's your job description? Even though we all know we do
I think
way more than what's in our job description.
to me, in the one word, would be education. A lot of it's fire prevention and the inspections. Even during my inspections, I try to educate. Try to get people to understand why they should do things. Commercial businesses, try to keep people safe. So, same things in the public education with no kids. It's all about prevention and safety.
Okay.
So describe like Project Shield, because you have Project Shield, which is your baby.
Project Shield, we started. This would be the second year for that program. In the past, we've took donations through National Fire Safety Council. Excuse me. Started to go on our own, so we can have better control of the money and the funds, and we actually can save it up to do bigger projects. So this is pretty much public education and events. So it's all the money goes back to the community to help buy flyers or books or coloring books or activity books or put on events. So that's the idea of it. This year we're trying to raise funds for Fire Prevention Week. That's the number one goal. And secondary to that is safety helmets for like bicycles, skateboarding, that kind of thing for the community.
And you and I kind of talked about that because we were trying to figure out what would be useful and purposeful to use with that money other than just like the actual material, printed materials. I mean, if you think about it, the age group that he's focusing on, I think makes more sense because they're younger, they're more impressionable. If we can get them to think that helmets are cool at that age and, everybody has one, everybody's wearing one because we've literally delivered it to everybody their age group.
Right. So we're looking to do pre-K and K through the county, get the helmets to those. So hopefully they get used to wearing those helmets. So they'll continue. And with everybody having them, maybe we'll get more to wear them. Hopefully we prevent those injuries from happening.
I know I had a really good time when y'all did that event at the library with the water balloons, and it was like fire versus police.
Yeah, we're going to do that again this year.
That was really fun. Like, it was a good time. Like, It was cool.
The library is a good way to get to the community because they automatically bring kids and the public in. So they have events. So we're just part of their event. I say we help organize the fire and police have that little competition. It wasn't necessarily supposed to be water balloon flight. It was a competition that turned into a water balloon flight
quickly.
But we knew it was going to go there. That's just part of the fun. I think we had a good time with it. The kids had a good time with it. The parents and.
I think they got into it more than the kids did. The parents were like hardcore about it.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Who's not going to like throwing water balloons at
I know
law enforcement?
The park rec kids love it too. They look forward to you guys every year, and that's just fun.
Oh,
Even the aides look excited for that.
At the
park, yeah.
The park, that was fun last
pad.
year as well. I got soaking wet last year.
So how did you end up in not only the position that you're in, but I know that you're a firefighter before that. How did you end up in that whole role?
So
How'd you end up here, Jason Pender?
I've been a firefighter since I was 15. I got into it through my brother and my brother-in-law. They were volunteers. Once I was able to volunteer, so I got into the volunteer service.
Say where you're from.
I'm from South Carolina.
I live
cannot
in
tell.
So South Carolina.
He says Carolina.
Lived in North Carolina. So from the Carolinas. So that's how I got into it. I got it in high school. Actually created through the the Boy Scouts of America, I think it was, created a Explorer program. It was a Fire Explorer program. So I was founded that in our county that I lived in. And so we got that program for the teenagers. And I worked through that and with that until I was old enough to actually get into firefighting. After that, I left for the military, and once I got out of the military, I went back to it as a professional and a volunteer. So I was a professional firefighter in North Carolina, and then this job here came up, so I came to Texas. I've been here 13 years or so, and enjoyed almost every day of it. So with the fire marshal, I just saw a need. We had a fire marshal at the time, and I was wanting to way I could help. So I went through that certification process and wound up becoming in that position.
I want to go back to something you said. You said when you were 15, you were already like organizing and leading like programs in your county and stuff. What do you think is the biggest influencer to that age? Because obviously something made an impression on you, something like kind of sparked your interest to be like, hey, I want to do this. What do you think is the biggest way to do that to young kids today? How do we like spark that? Like, hey, you want to do something? All right, let you create it. Like that leadership role. How do you get that?
Well, most of it's figure out what you want, what's your passion, what do you enjoy doing. If you enjoy doing it, you're going to do it, and it's not going to be work. So it's just going to be a good day for you. So I got into that, and I found the people that was able to help. I mean, they usually did the work. They were the grown-ups, I guess. So they just helped me achieve that. So I just came up with them through the fire department, say, this is what I like to do. They say, hey, there's this program. So let's start that program. So we did that. And so we had a pretty good group. I don't know how many actually was there, but we had a pretty good following. And as far as I know, they still do it today. So I think the thing is, the best thing is just to recognize what you enjoy doing and follow
So
that.
identify key interest and maybe like skills or like qualities that play into it.
Yes. Always have goals. Set goals. If you don't have a goal, then you can't achieve it. So set a goal.
Well, so
Work
what
towards
are
it.
your goals for your position right now?
Put you on the spot.
Here you are.
We ask the hard questions here at
You
Bridging
do.
the Gap.
Well, I mean, you did say that you kind of saw a need. And I know a lot of positions, just because you're qualified for the position does not necessarily mean that you should be in that position. I mean, like you said, hey, I saw a need. There was a need for whatever. But those are the types of people we need in those positions. The people that see the need, they see, the potential in what the program or the position or, whatever could do, and then they go and do it. So what are some of the goals that you have or that you had for that position?
So I like helping. I like helping people. And I like improving things. I think we're always should be looking at ways to improve something. Mm-hmm. If we're going to be stuck where we're at, then I don't want to say we're wrong, but there's always a better way or a different way of doing things. So how can we identify that? And just because there is a way to improve it doesn't mean we're wrong. It's just everything we do, there's a better way, a different way, a different perspective. People see it differently. Just trying to remember that and try to improve every day. So we don't know everything. I still learn something every day. So I'm still developing as who I am.
And I think that's the key. That's the point of it too. Nobody is ever like the end all be all know all in their position. And the people that think that, I think that's where you kind of have a leadership detriment because they don't think they can improve. They don't think that there's any areas of opportunity to grow, to learn, to do better, to do more. Yes. So
that's like you always try to use our positions, our knowledge, our experience to help somebody else. How can we help you or somebody else to achieve their goals or recognize what they want to do or what they're needing? I think it's a lot of times it's hard to get there because we don't even know ourselves. So recognizing what our goals is, what our shortfalls is, where we need help, and actually saying, hey, I need help is huge.
Yeah. I want to say too, so part of our purpose for this podcast is to bridge the gap on perception and reality of what we actually do in our positions, like what your local government should be doing for you. And so as a fire marshal, you do like code, right? Enforcement
Correct.
kind of.
Inspections.
Okay.
Commercial inspections and plan reviews.
So what would you say to a person, like you come in their business and you're like, hey buddy, this ain't working. This isn't safe. Like I need you to fix this. And I'm sure you get a lot of backlash like from those people. What information would you give these people to kind of help see your side?
So I think my main difference, what I try to do is educate versus enforce. If I go in there and say, hey, you need to do this, you got to do this, I'm going to fight that forever. If I go and say, hey, this is why we do this, this is the safety. This is the reason people died from this in the past. So this is why this rule's here. So I'd go in as a educator, not an enforcer.
I like that.
I like that too. Sounds less aggressive. You're like, hey, I'm just here to educate.
And it seems to work. I say we've only been, luckily, I mean, every place we go in is going to have issues. That's never going to be the case where everything's perfect. It's not a new city. It's not a new buildings. So we have to pick and choose, I guess, to a point of what is really important or it's really going to cause an issue. And even times when I had to truly enforce something, that I usually get a thank you out of it.
What's the craziest thing you've seen that you had to be like, this is
Straight
not
to
going to
it.
fly? I want to know.
Probably a restaurant that was opened up. Never kind of told nobody, didn't have any of the safety requirements. And I said, it's the only place I walked in and say, hey, we're done. You cannot operate today. And I actually got a thank you out of that. So that was really weird to go in and shut somebody down, their business down, and actually get a thank you. And then we worked through the process, and they eventually opened back up as a restaurant with those requirements.
Just going for it. Not
Pop-up
even
shop, yeah.
Yeah, not even trying to get a permit.
That's so we try to educate people. So before they actually start and it's going through that process, we try to get with them and say, hey, this is what we're going to need. It's easier to get in that mindset first and work
Then
through that
corrective.
process than have to go back and correct things after you spent money and then you spent time and effort and you did it wrong when you could have done the same thing, maybe cheaper, easier, the correct way.
And safer.
Just some people say people don't see all the perspectives. I look at it as, I say people aren't necessarily seeing it as unsafe, but I see it as way how we can make it safer. So it's not necessarily they're doing it wrong. They're just not seeing all the sides of it.
I think too, a lot of business owners and even residents, they don't realize that there's culpability there. Like you know, if you don't follow these types of rules, you are responsible if there are accidents, if there's deaths, and a lot of that stuff is it's just small negligence that lead to huge ordeals. Like you don't have the proper wiring or things aren't grounded correctly. I mean, just anything could turn into something huge, and they don't realize that they are responsible for that.
Yeah.
What if you had a fire, you didn't do something up to code and the whole building comes down?
Yeah, and most of the issues, the correction actions that we need is usually pretty minor. And so usually not a huge, big thing. It's just something that needs to happen. The majority of them is small things. That doesn't require a lot of money, a lot of time. But the effect of it could have a big impact. Hopefully you don't know the impact because we were actually preventing. So you actually don't see what it's actually preventing.
You're not getting to the life or death situation.
And I said, a lot of time it's hard to see what we're actually doing because we're preventing it from happening versus a lot of times when you put effort into something to gain something, you get to see the fruit.
Yeah, you're trying to keep the fruit from
In
happening.
this case, we're trying to prevent it.
Yeah.
So it's real difficult to articulate that and see that sometimes.
Have you ever just been yelled at?
Oh yeah, I've been yelled at, told, I pay your salary, I pay through taxes. Oh yeah, I've been.
What was your response?
I just sit back and listen. A lot of times people need to vent.
That is true. One thing I've seen from just working in the public, sometimes you're on the ending of somebody just having a bad day, and they just feel like they just need to get their frustrations out.
And I'd say this one was even worse because they called me. They needed me. They needed me to actually do my inspection for things that they were trying to achieve. And when I gave them my report, there was something that was fairly unsafe, and they didn't like it. And it wasn't even nothing big. It was just something super simple. But some people just don't like to be told no. Be told what to do.
So going forward with your position, Project Shield, what can we expect? What can the public expect from the fire marshal?
Well, hopefully a lot of it's going to be the same thing. A lot of the daily duties is kind of just ongoing. I try to tell people to sell yourself. That's very hard. It's very hard for me to do as well because to me it's just what I do daily. It's just normal for me. So I don't even see it as something, I guess, special or something that's out of the ordinary because it's just what I do. So I don't even think about it. So sometimes I don't even recognize that I'm doing it. So it's really hard to say that or tell you because I don't know. It's just what I'm doing.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that you're bridging the gap between some of the youth that we have, especially the little ones, you know, like you're going to library reads, you're participating in park rec stuff. Like it's not, you know, it's not just you, but it's a lot of our firefighters, our police officers, but you as a whole, you're organizing a lot of that. I don't think you remember that sometimes. Like you actually are the one organizing all of that.
And you participate in emergency management things. Like I think you have a whole broad.
You're all out and about, just really in the inside of everything that's going on versus just sitting out from the outside saying, oh, good job. Like you're the one out there coordinating that. And
Well, that's the part I like. I like helping. A lot of it's I like getting those people together. I like getting the people together and they figure it out or we figure it out. I don't want to do all the work. This is a team effort, 100% a team effort. I can't do everything, don't want to do everything. I'm only as strong as our team. So I look at it that way. It's not necessarily what I can do, but what can we do?
that was a good answer.
That was a really good.
Yeah, that was a really good answer.
So off topic, who would you say is the best driver at City Hall?
I know who's not.
I knew that was coming. Just so our viewers know, I did possibly one time accidentally rear end Jason.
I wasn't
in his
going
fire
there, Nicole. I was
I
going to
didn't know
let
about that.
fire marshal truck.
And I like my truck. It's special to me. I like vehicles, so I take pride in it.
Hurt you a little bit, huh?
It did hurt me a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of rammed into the big red truck.
I didn't even really feel it. I didn't even know it happened. It's just like, what is she doing? It's like, what was that sound?
Were you in the car when she did it?
I was leaving.
Oh, we
We were both leaving, and she tried to be the same place I was.
Yeah, he
It
was
didn't
in
go
my
well.
spot.
So this was your fault.
No, I was driving out, and she was backing up out of
Oh.
her parking spot. Should have been a little faster, I guess.
I think Nicole was just a victim of circumstance.
I think
Well, hey,
so too,
we-
but I had to pay for it.
We learned from it. Now we pay way
Yeah,
more
because
attention.
you don't park near her anymore.
Well, it actually, the whole situation, I was driving my husband's truck, and so since I wrecked his truck, he bought me a new car, so I would not
So
drive
it
his
kinda
vehicles.
worked.
So it worked out in my
I
favor.
don't know
And
how
now I
that
have a
math
backup.
works,
Now I have a backup camera, so it's
It was a
safer for
plan.
all. Yeah.
She had a plan. It worked good.
There was some underlying motives there.
And I got my truck washed and buffed. It actually shined way better than it normally was before. So
So
I guess
it worked out for all involved.
Eventually.
Eventually, it's all part of the process. Trust the process. Trust the process.
So what is one thing that you, if you had just the whole town sitting in front of you right now, that you would want them to know?
I'd be super nervous.
I knew that you were going to say that.
Man, I'd be frozen. Wouldn't know how to speak.
Okay, but if they had their backs turned to you,
I don't think that'd make a difference. I'm still speaking.
Well, the
one
whole town's
thing-
going to be listening to this.
I think the major thing is just not, again, let's say this is a team effort. They're part of that team as well, especially when we're talking about education and mitigation. A lot of the stuff that we could prevent hazards from coming, so we don't have to respond to them. So that's that's the case in everything. No medicine and fires or law enforcement issues. Only if we prevent it from happening, then we ain't got to respond to it and recover from it. So there's a lot of different avenues they can go to help themselves.
what are some of those avenues that you feel like they should know about? Maybe they don't.
On the fire side of it, no smoke alarms. That's something super simple, super cheap, but it's going to let you know, hey, there's something wrong. They see that smoke. They say, hey, this alarm's going to wake you up, hopefully. Hey, something's going on. Figure it out. Do we need to get out? And then have a plan, especially with small kids. Have a plan. They usually know better than we do. They learn it from the school, hopefully from us maybe. When we take the safety trailer out or we see them at the school or whatever, some of the events, have a plan. Where are you going to meet? How do you know that everybody's out of the house? Once you're out, don't go back in. Some of those safety messages that's usually taught in the lower grades, it's still
And the
apply
fire
to
department,
adults.
they offer that, don't they? Don't they come out and they can install your fire detectors?
Yeah, if you don't have smoke alarm, smoke detector, and you don't have the ability to put it in, to change the batteries, we can
Just call them.
help you out.
What about
I actually did not have this isn't like I'm not proud to say, but I did not have a smoke detector or carbon monoxide detector in my
Nicole.
house until Pender told me and I now have one.
2023.
I know. I now have
We have the
3.
technology.
He's
So
always doing good work.
he is. He maybe saved my life one day. Who knows?
Well, it's actually sad. A lot of the fires, like the structure fires, I see that they don't have them, or they have them and they took the batteries out. So it's really hard to take that when you see what it can cause
Something
and
that
what
it
it
could have
has
prevented
caused.
very quickly.
That's something super simple.
They also have the Knox boxes too, and I didn't know what those were till you guys explained them to me. You could probably explain it better than I can.
So the Knox box is a commercial box. No, that's just the box that we use, the company that we use. Usually it was a commercial box put on commercial businesses, and it's a safe. You're not going to get in it, so it's secure. The master keys for those buildings are there, so we can access it if we need to. So it helps us prevent damage to the structure, helps us.
Instead of having to bust in the whole place.
Correct. And with that, there'll potentially comes injuries to our firefighters and our equipment. So if something happened or nothing going on, we can secure the place when we leave. So now that's actually offered for our residents as well. So if you have
Like a fall
people
victim
that
or elderly, especially, I think that's like
correct.
the definite venue that people need to, if you have an older or elderly parent, grandparent, loved one that maybe, especially if they live alone.
Correct, and that's where we see the most use is the residents for the people that maybe fall or for whatever reason we actually respond to them more often than not. So then we can go in, help them when we leave. If they're transported by ambulance or whatever the case is, we can secure the house when we leave. Those our keys are locked up, secured by code and tracked. So it's a pretty.
So you're not going to
safe.
have some random person having access to
Correct.
your house.
They're secured. They're key secured and tracked and monitored. So we know where they're at.
There's also a link on our website under the Fire Marshal's section that gives information on Project Shield. It gives information on the Knox boxes, all of that good stuff. And one thing too is and I wasn't even thinking about this till I talked to you and the fire chief, was having your house number visible. And after we had that conversation, I drove down like just to, whatever street, and you can probably 8 out of 10 residents, you cannot tell what their house number is.
Yep. So yeah, please have your house numbers visible from the street, and at night it's the best we can. Maybe paint it on the curb, put it on near the door. Go out to the next street. Make sure there's no cars coming. Make sure you can see it. We're coming in emergency situations normally, and sometimes seconds count. So let's say whatever helps us. And think about maybe putting it in the alley as well. Mm-hmm. Sometimes those calls come in from we need you in the backside in the alley. So then we're really lost. Then we can't look at the neighbor's house to try to figure out where we're at. We're really somewhat blind. I was a driver. I did drive those trucks during the day and night. And the night is super difficult because a lot of times you can't see the neighbor's house or you can't see those numbers. So you try to figure out. We're pretty good with knowing our streets and our blocks, but man, every second counts.
So what would you say to somebody just listening to this that is maybe interested in your position?
That's a good question.
Because you see, especially when the kids are little, they always want to be a firefighter.
Sure,
they want to be the fire marshal. They want to be the police chief, or they want to be a police officer. And I think that does come from them seeing those people in those positions being helpful and, being protectors and even educators.
Yeah. Any of the emergency services, you got to have the need to want to help people. Try not to lose that desire. And once you get in, education never stops. Education is important. As long as you're not going into high school or the college necessary, but you're always continuing to improve. The fire service, law enforcement, EMS, everything kind of changes and monitored throughout the years, how they do things, best practices, different designs on automobiles. Technology. So everything is changing, and there's always CEs or continuing education and different ways of doing things.
What do you think would be the first step, though? Like, I'm a kid graduating high school. I want to be a firefighter. What do I do?
Well, if you want to be a firefighter, come out and hang out at the fire department. Maybe see if you can do a ride-along. See if this is something you're really interested in. The actual academies are expensive and time-consuming. So come out and actually try to take part and make sure this is what you want. I love it. I think it's a great place to be. There's something different every day.
It's not the same response to everything.
Yeah, everything's different. Sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad.
I was gonna say I called the fire department yesterday to the dome.
What did you do?
What?
We couldn't get into a door, and we had the Knox box. So we had to call them to use the Knox box.
See? Sold.
So
That was a much better experience than when I had to call the fire department at the dome while you were on maternity leave.
what happened with that?
Some kid pulled a fire alarm during a party that they were having in the dome, and we didn't know if the alarm was just going off, and the actual venue alarm was going off too. So we were real confused. Had to call the fire marshal in the middle of the night. Came in a clutch, just guessing random numbers to the code, and it was it.
Figured it out.
So you're also fire marshal, psychic medium.
Yeah.
And then we had to figure out how to silence the fire alarm because we didn't have the key to it. So then 3 days later, we also had to call the fire marshal again to
Did
find
have
the key.
just didn't know yet.
You didn't know where it was either. None of us knew.
I didn't. We figured it out later, though.
But it was really embarrassing that he had like the best idea of where it's at. And I'm like, I knew that too. I just was checking to make sure that our fire marshal was capable of handling the situation.
He passed, right?
He did pass.
Yeah.
I probably failed, but it's fine. I don't work at the dome. So it's on.
I'd say I get exposed to those things. I get to see the fire alarms and the fire suppression stuff, and I get to test them or with the companies when they're testing them. So I get to see it and how it activates. I have a better background.
What is one aspect of your job that most people don't realize that is the responsibility of the fire marshal?
I bet that's probably all of it.
I wouldn't have assumed that they would have done plans. I mean, after you go through the process, then it makes perfect sense, but...
Yep, that's the plan reviews. Make sure the newer buildings or remodel buildings are all up to code and that's going to meet certain standards.
I think a lot of people think the fire marshal's main and only job is investigating an arson.
That's the way we investigate fires. The purpose of investigating fires is not necessarily the arson side of it all the time, because most of them aren't arson. But
Right.
if we don't know why they're starting, how can we prevent it? So a lot of times, again, that's educating how we're learning how
So there's a theme
to prevent
here.
fires.
Preventing.
And that's a national standard. Now, those numbers are recorded every year. Our reports and our numbers are sent nationally to the state, and those go into, that's how they help do recalls of appliances or cars or whatever are bad.
Okay, yeah.
So that information is useful.
I do have one final question. What are you doing to bridge the gap?
Between perception and reality when it comes to our citizens, our community. Like, how are you bridging the gap between your position in this, this government sector to...
Yeah, I was going to say between government and community. How do you
Most
bridge
of it
that
is just
gap?
like this, what you're doing right now, letting the people know who we are, that we are, here we're trying to help. We have goals and trying to better the community. A lot of times that's not seen. It's just a lot of times when I go in and I'm not doing my inspections, sometimes they see it as the negative side of it because I'm making them spend money. I'm making them do some things that they don't understand. So I try to educate and get them to understand this is why we're doing this. I think that comes in a long way. So just coming back from the library for their reading time, I'll just getting involved in the community, stuff that we do out in the community, events. We're coming up with the safety and health fair. I guess we're going to call it Family Days, trying to get that out there and get those vendors come out. And a lot of that's going to be, again, education and fun, some things that we're going to not normally see. That's going to get the community involved with the responders and the other agencies. That's going to be part of it.
I think it's funny. People forget that sometimes we are the community as well.
Yeah, we're part of this community.
We live
We're
here
not
too.
trying to sabotage it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of communities. I mean, it's different. Depends on what you do. A community is, if you're in a car club, that's your community. If you're in a book club, that's your community. So it's what you enjoy. That's how you go into the people that you're going to kind of
gravitate towards.
go to. That's the same thing here. Though, normally, as a government agency, most of our people here, they want to help the community. That's what they're here for. I said we do get paid, but that's just part of it. But that's not necessarily our desire. We're not here for the paycheck. We're here to help the people.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Thank you. Thank you for spending your time with us. Thank
You
you
just
for
giving it, I mean, the feedback. A lot of people, the goal with this podcast is, like Nicole said, to bridge the gap between perception and reality when it comes to our positions, our dedication, our just what we're doing as a whole, but also to educate and to humanize these people in these positions. Because like you said, most of the time you're not seeing people on their, on the happiest day of their life. And on the flip side, when they're trying to get your approval on things, and if it's not going the right way, I mean, you're not always viewed, none of us, I think, are always viewed as the idea that these people have in their head of, who's out here doing these things, operating these positions.
And that's the hard part. As I said, we always come at things at our perspective. It's real hard to look at somebody else's, how they're seeing things. We only know what we've seen and know through growing up and how we dealt with things. So this is how we deal with it. But somebody else is completely different. A lot of times on the responders side of things, we see people in their bad days, and that takes a toll on the responders as well, because this is what they see. This is what they get to experience. So I'd say it's bad for the people that are going through that, but also over time, they'll know that bills and takes an effect on the responders as well. So it's different.
Well,
Just try to remember that. It's like, just because you see it one way doesn't mean it's always what it is. There's always a different way to look at things.
Mm-hmm. We all have different lenses.
And there's different approaches. There's a different way of doing things. I say usually a lot of times we try to figure out our goal, what we want to achieve, but the path to get there is sometimes different for everybody.
it's not a straight line for sure. It's not, there's a lot of pivots. There's a lot of,
Sometimes there's backing up.
there's a lot. And so, I mean, we make mistakes. We just like everybody else, but if anybody gets anything out of this, we want it to be that there's a human behind the position. There's somebody that cares, that's passionate about their position. They're passionate about the community and what they're doing. And I am a firm believer that where you invest, you feel invested. And it doesn't just mean you're, monetary. It's where you invest your time, where you invest your just everything, your time, your money, your attention.
Are you the kind of person that takes your shopping cart back at Walmart and puts it up?
That's a good question. That's a standard question
that's
now.
That's the true identifier as a person.
I'll
I feel
take
like.
mine and somebody else's as well.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
Well, that's the
That's a hero, my friends.
a hero. Not all heroes wear capes, and there's no better way to end this podcast than to just celebrate the fact that you're Jason. No, we appreciate you coming down here. We did force you, but we appreciate just talking to you again. Like, we're trying to humanize people. We're trying to peel back the mask between the Wizard of Oz and show that there are actually people that do care about our community, that they do have plans for this community. And, it's not always what it seems.
Working every day towards it.
They're literally trying their hardest every single day. So thank you for coming, and we will be harassing you again soon.